I am here with Tanner Saraceno. You know him from his MMA career as well as Tough Enough. Tanner, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Now, for wrestling fans that maybe haven't been able to keep track, you've been remarkably active in the MMA cage, more than most do so early in your career. I mean, you debuted as a pro just a few years ago, and now you're already fighting in LFA. You've it seems like you're in the cage every few months. Is it hard to remain that active as a fighter?
Oh, for me, it's typically easier to remain a little bit more active. It keeps you in shape as long as you're staying healthy. It's just constant competition, which I feed on. I don't really like taking too long mentally. It's not too good for me to eat around too much or start getting lazy. I like having goals. I like staying active and working towards those goals. So short turnarounds on fights better for me. I have a goal in this career for myself, and taking too long in between, it's a short-lived career when you look at the time span, and I want to get after it quick.
Yeah, you didn't waste any time after Tough Enough. I know that you immediately got in and you won a fight, and then you turned pro shortly after that. Right after that, did you kind of know it was time for you to go pro?
Yeah, and it was getting harder for me to find fights as an amateur to begin with. I was actually fighting up a weight class at 185 as well, for a majority of it, just trying my best to get fights. And it was getting really, really hard. My last amateur opponent, I was probably the top tier around the area. So there really wasn't anything left other than to test myself by going pro. And I felt I was ready. My coaches felt I was ready, so we made that jump.
What was the negotiation process like with LFA? Because they've got a little bit more of a profile than many of the regional promotions in the area. How did this fight come about?
I put my manager to work and said, listen, I want that exposure. I want that opportunity. I've had several local fights, and I'm very well known locally. But I need to get my name out there if I want to continue to grow in this sport. And wasting time, not wasting time, but at this point in my career, I had an opportunity to fight for more money locally, but that's not what it's about right now. Right now, I think in my career, it's time for exposure, test myself against tough opponents, and that's what LFA is able to offer. And I was very excited to jump on that opportunity and
Your,
get back on TV again. That's always a good thing.
yeah, your record's listed as 7-2. Is that correct? Because I know that some record keepers don't exactly, iffy at best sometimes.
Yeah, no, 7-2 is correct.
And you've won 7 of your last 8 fights. I know actually one of the guys you fought, Travis Connor, a teammate of mine, had fought a couple times. When you're looking for fights on the regional circuit, what is that process like? Do you have a manager? Do you have an agent? How do you go about finding the right fight on the regional circuit after you have had national exposure on a different kind of scene?
I do have a manager now who's taking care of that, and we're working on projecting how do we advance a career, not just which fight is a good fight or a bad fight, or are we ready for this, ready for that. We're we're trying to build a career here, not just. I think a lot of fighters just take any fight, and I don't think that's always the smartest option for them. I think some people kind of force themselves into it. It's do or die, and this is your only option. I like to stay active, and by doing so, I put myself in a position to succeed by getting bigger opportunities and on the local scene or the national scene.
You mentioned that you were fighting up a weight as an amateur at 185, and you're 170 now. Is that where your future is as well? Is it 170?
I believe so. Yes. Obviously later in my career, depending how my body, completely fills out once I'm, 100% just done, done growing, done changing, and my metabolism start changing, and as long as my weight cut doesn't become an issue, I think I'll stay around here. And I also, I heard, and I don't know if it's true, I hope it is, but that they're changing the weight classes in the UFC next year to one. They're adding a 165 and bumping 170 to 175. And if that's the case, then I'll ideally stay at 175. I think that'll be a really good weight for me. So I hope that does happen.
Yeah, they need a
Uh,
division with 100 fighters at 155, 100 fighters at 170. There's no reason you can't lop 33 off of each one of those and just have it even across the board. I wanted to ask you about that as well because I saw you retweet the MMA Athletes Association. What are some of the primary concerns that would have been addressed by that association? Is it getting rid of weight cuts? Is it more weight divisions? Like, what about them have you really heard that really stood out to you?
The one thing I heard is that there was going to be the 175 and 165 would be the two new divisions, and I think that just makes sense. You go from 125 to 35 to 45 to
Yeah.
55, and then you start making these larger jumps. So I think you get a lot of people that are kind of stuck in I could cut 5 more pounds and kind of really push my body to the limit, or I could cut 5 less pounds and be in a very, very solid, healthy state. And that's kind of where I'm at. I've had doctors tell me I could make 155, and I just think it's pretty stupid to. I'm not pushing I don't think I need that kind of advantage of being that big. I'm confident in my abilities. I'm confident in my skills and my work ethic that I'm putting in the work and ready to go. So I don't think I need that advantage and it could be a disadvantage of cutting all the way down there. But some fighters believe that they do need that advantage, and they put themselves at risk, especially when they don't do it correctly. And I think it's just a matter of time before these weight classes are either instituted and there's much healthier cuts, or they do same-day weigh-ins and just get it over with. You just fight at your natural weight. And ideally, that's what I would prefer. Just fight at your natural walk-around weight, give or take 5 pounds, just to be healthy and in shape. But
How would you define that actual? Because I'd actually seen you retweet a Joe Rogan post where he said we need to transition towards fighters competing at their actual weight. People will always try to game the system, right? But I mean, is that a way of kind of weeding it out? Like, well, you're doing this at your own risk, and pretty soon the cream will rise to the top.
That's one way. If you do weigh-ins, like college wrestling, you weigh in, and an hour later you're competing. You don't have that much time to blow up 30x amount of pounds that some fighters do overnight, if not more. So you weigh us in an hour before our competition starts, and we get backstage, and we can eat and drink basic foods and stuff. You're not going to watch a guy blow up 30 pounds in 2 hours. It's just not physically possible for them to push themselves like that and then compete afterwards. It'll just take that completely away. So I'm all for, weigh in and compete within a couple hours. You won't have that issue of when you get guys drained out, you try and get them there and they got to be there, several hours beforehand and then wait there several hours after. That's daunting on some people who are just so completely drained. That's a task in itself. You get a healthy guy, at his normal weight, and he's happy and he's fed and he's hydrated. You can put him in a room and you don't have to worry about him, passing out or anything. He's ready to go. So I think fighters, if they're coming in, on weight and ready to go and healthy, they'd be okay with, maybe coming in a couple hours extra early on fight day, but not having to deal with that whole rehydration. You just come in healthy and make sure you're in shape year round, because you won't get guys that are 30 pounds overweight cutting a ton of weight just to make the weight class, and now they're out of shape and but they made the weight. That's what I think about it, at least. Now, if you get a guy that comes in on fight day at his weight and he fights at 170 and he comes in at 170, he either cut weight to get there and he's going to feel that difference a couple hours later, or he's got his weight down control to where he's at 170 and that's his fight weight.
I think that's a pretty fair description. You were obviously a standout on the 2015 edition of Tough Enough. Do you keep in touch with anybody from that show?
Yeah, I sure do. Here and there I'll touch base with the guys, mostly Josh. I actually talked with him a little bit about he's wanting to come on over to the MMA world, which I think would be great.
Oh, really?
A freakish specimen. And I told him to come on down to my gym. I'll train him myself. I think he'd be great in this sport. He's got tons of athleticism, tons of work ethic, and I think he could make a great turnover to it.
If you have any semblance of talent, and you're a guy that size too, you have a much quicker path. I mean, UFC's kind of throwing the heavyweight season out there this year as an attraction, because usually they'll just sign up whatever prospects are at heavyweight. They don't go through Tough Enough, or not through Tough Enough, through The Ultimate Fighter. with you fighting at 170, that's what most dudes are. Most dudes aren't 6'5", 6'6" like Josh is.
Yeah.
Is it how much tougher is it for you to stand out? Because like I mentioned earlier, 100 guys in the UFC at that weight division already.
Yeah, you know, I think it's just the pool you're pulling from. So if you look at women's MMA, you know, there's women who are. There was a fight this past week, and I think she was 6-0 or something, and she was ranked in the top 10. You know, you just don't see that in the male division. We just have there's just such a smaller pool to pull from in the women's division, so you rise to the top a lot quicker. When you're talking about a couple hundred in the country, well, now you go to men, you might be talking about a couple thousand. You got to stand out in that couple thousand. So I don't know if those numbers are accurate at all, but just for off a basis, you know, you have a different pool to pull from.
Yeah.
Same thing's the same with men's weight classes. You know, most average men are kind of around the sizes they have portrayed. Heavyweight's kind of just that thing you have to have in there. So now you get those heavyweights where you get guys that are actually competing now at a heavyweight, and you just don't have that many heavyweights competing. Yeah. So, if you're an athlete at heavyweight, you're worlds above the rest of them, because not only are you a competing heavyweight, you're athletic, which I hate to say it, but a lot of them are not. They're kind of just in there throwing heavy hands, which is great. But you got a guy that can go the distance at heavyweight, and he's in great shape, and he's a great athlete. He just happens to be a big dude. He's going to go far fast.
What's the last contact you've had with WWE? I know that you had mentioned that they were like, well, make a name for yourself in MMA and maybe we'll talk.
Yeah, I haven't heard much from them yet, so, possibly, the LFA could boost that, and we can get a cross going between MMA and join these two worlds, which I think is a great thing, and definitely in the future, especially for the sake of entertainment goes. So, if my name keeps rising, there's MMA stars that are going into WWE and they're mixing well. So I think, I can do the same exact thing, just start from the bottom and work my way up in both worlds. And I think it's a great opportunity, and hopefully they see that and they're interested in it.
Have you done any additional pro wrestling training since then, or did you just immediately jump right back into MMA?
I put my focus towards MMA. They kind of made it clear I didn't have a future with them at that moment, so I knew I had a future in MMA, and I kind of chose that. I have bills I need to pay as well, and unfortunately, between my business of my tree service and my MMA, wrestling's kind of, it's got to be on hold until there's something kind of definite there. I don't want to put my hand in too many baskets and not be able to give attention to what's needed to project me forward.
How do you look back on that experience as a whole? Because, I mean, you've gone through something that almost nobody in your position has went through. There have been cast members from Tough Enough who moved on to MMA, but none have had the success that you did. Like, you've parlayed it into where you are a legitimate prospect in the MMA world now.
Yeah, I've always had my goals, and I work very hard towards my goals, and a lot of people just they don't understand it. They may not see what I'm willing to do and willing to do to succeed. So, the overall experience has been great for me. It definitely put me in a position that I'm blessed to be in, and I've certainly worked hard to get there. So I do deserve, that recognition or, that boost. And, I go out there and I perform as well. Those two things, I think those are great starting fluid to the fire that's going to be my career.
Who helped you out the most on that show? I know you had the opportunity to work with a lot of different people.
That's really tough to say. Billy Gunn was grateful, athletically and physically. Jericho was another one. He was in there. I actually partied with him until about 2 a.m. On one of the episodes. We were drinking, we were having a great time, and we shared a lot of stories, had a good time. Lita actually talked to me on the side a couple of times, and she helped me through, helped me realize a couple, mental kind of, I guess, possibly sports psychology sort of things. She helped me realize a couple things about myself and helped me work through some things. And while I was on the show, and gave me some insight of how I can use what I've done and what I was feeling, how I could use that to help me in my career. So I've had a lot of help from a lot of people, in that show specifically. and then my fans and my family around me that have helped me all over.
Now, I don't know how much you keep up with the current WWE product today, but Ronda Rousey's on the roster. Matt Riddle just got signed. You have Razor of the Authors of Pain, who actually fought in Bellator before. Have you had the opportunity to see any of these people, and what do you think about the transition and the bridge that you kind of mentioned earlier? You're starting to see a bigger marriage between the two.
Yeah, and I absolutely see. I don't see a reason. They're two competing sports in a way, but they're not. I don't think they're as competitive where you should shun out the other one. I think there's definitely opportunities to combine these two sports and maybe not join companies, but spare athletes to go into. Obviously, it's going to be much more difficult to send a WWE competitor into a MMA fight. That's just a completely different experience, and that takes some serious experience and time. A lot of the movements that you do training for fights, you can transition those very easily and very well over to the WWE, and then you more so just have to learn the theatrics of it. So I think it's a lot easier to transition from MMA to the WWE than it is vice versa, but there's definitely that opportunity. And I think, especially on small scale like the indie circuits, I really think they should be reaching out towards, these prospects, like myself and others that can do both and help build their career. And by building their career, if they were to build my career, they're also building, their career and their business. So I don't see a downside in doing any of this. There's going to be haters that think it, but I see no downside of testing your abilities and just branching out to different worlds, different communities, and just trying new things. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I'm a go-getter. I like learning new things. I like trying new things. I do tree work. I build furniture. I just started knife making. I do welding. I do all these things that interest me. I just ordered a CNC plasma cutter because I've been blessed enough to be able to order one and get into that world. It interested me, so I decided to jump into it. That's how I live my life, and I would ideally love my sports to be the same way, where I can combine those.
Tanner, I want to thank you for joining me. You fight at LFA 49 this Friday, September 14th against Jonathan Webb. Let the people know where they can follow you on social media.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been great. You can find me on Facebook at Tanner Saraceno, and on Instagram and Twitter you can find me at Tanner's Legend. And go ahead, give me a like, give me a follow, and shoot me a message. Let me know what you're about. I try and get back to everyone as best I can, and just stay happy.
LFA 49 Friday, September 14th on Access TV. Tanner, thank you so much.